Welcome back to the World Championship Series Winter Edition. We are moving into our second match from the European round of 16. My name is Fear Dragon. I am joined by Nathanius, and we got a Terran versus Terran.
Yeah, I know.
We decided to get rid of one of the Terrans because we said that we were too many Terrans. Two is too many Terrans in the round of 16.
As the great Dutchman Kevin de Koning once said, this group has 2 Terrans and 2 Zergs. Let's find out what the second best race in StarCraft is. I can't wait to join him on this wild ride through Europe, Fear Dragon. uThermal and HeroMarine, 2 players. I mean, really the question isn't even just who's better at StarCraft, who's better at complaining about the state of the game, you know? And you go to HeroMarine's Twitter, you're going for a little bit more of the dry humor, you know? HeroMarine's gonna say like, he's only 7,000 MMR, I'm 7,300. This is a waste of time to play him. And uThermal will say something along the lines of, I just don't know how to beat Immortals. But he'll use a Dutch accent. I can't do Dutch accent.
But he'll always add the XD at the end. So
add
like,
an XD, yeah.
So it's like, okay, so he's kind of balanced complaining, but he's also not, right? Because he had the XD, so it's okay.
The next 5 minutes, the chat will be nothing but people spamming XD.
XD, XD.
I hope if uThermal GG's out at any point, or even if he wins, we get an XD out of him.
Yeah. I enjoy these guys, though. They're both lovely individuals.
Wonderful streamers as well.
I love both of their streams. I especially enjoy watching uThermal play. There's like a runner game that he plays a lot of. But either way, guys, we're going to be starting this Terran versus Terran on Kairos Junction, in the top left-hand corner of the map, top of the blue Terran player. He is HeroMarine from Mouse Esports.
He faces off against our red Terran player, the Dutchman in the southeast. He is uThermal. Yeah, I mean, all jokes aside, these 2 players are very good. Very different personalities is what I was mostly trying to get across. And it makes them very appealing players to watch.
Different personalities and different play styles.
Yep.
Funny enough, I feel like HeroMarine, when you have a discussion with him about StarCraft, he's probably the more aggressive one. But when it comes to playing StarCraft, he's the more defensive one of the 2.
Yeah. I mean, he's German. He speaks his mind. You know?
Yeah, and uThermal is, if you talk with him, he's usually a pretty passive guy and everything. But then when he comes to his play, he's extremely aggressive.
Dutch people are just too nice, you know? I mean, you look at Rotterdam. Is the guy even capable of being mad? Nobody knows.
I don't know, man. Have you ever played against him on a barcode?
No, so I don't know.
Well,
is that it? Is that what does it?
That's what does it, I think. That's what you got to do. By the way, guys, we do have the command center coming down a little bit faster here for uThermal, whereas we got the more typical 1-1-1 setup coming out from HeroMarine.
Yeah, HeroMarine's still doing the standardish thing, though. You see that he pulled an SCV off of each refinery, so he is going to expand after this. uThermal is a player that is not shy from cheesing. I think uThermal's a much more likely player to cheese in this best of 3 than HeroMarine. So going for that more defensive build, it's not just like a meta build, it's also just him being like, I'm trying to be a little bit aware of my opponent. And I think it makes sense that uThermal would go for the Reaper expand because he is probably thinking that HeroMarine's not going to cheese him. Although, from HeroMarine's perspective, he's like, well, we probably never play on ladder because uThermal's MMR is too low.
Yeah. I love HeroMarine's standards for players.
Yeah.
It's probably the best part of his stream.
And the thing is, it's not, he's not even like a jerk or anything. He's just very on the nose about how he's like, I'm very good.
He's very honest with his thoughts.
It's like, I'm a very good player, and I don't play against 99% of people because they can't hit me.
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay. That's true. You've earned that. When you get to be the top, or, you know, one of the tip-top Terran players in all of Europe, you earn the right to say that.
Yep. We do have first Hellion now out here for HeroMarine. He tried to poke forward with his own Reaper and Hellions across the map and wasn't really able to find too much. Kind of saw the command center, poked away at it a little bit, but backs up.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the way that this game is set up, we're going to see that Starport swap probably go into the Ravens. You don't really see a ton of Hellions early on. This is a kind of risky strategy to go for uThermal, since oftentimes you are very vulnerable. And okay, now he's going to swap off. So he just wanted to build the 4 Hellions. I don't mind that. I think it's really risky to delay going into that like tank Raven phase too much, since a lot of builds that aren't like tank Raven or Viking, even if you don't want to attack, are still very weak against the tank Raven Viking. Now we have those Hellions showing up for uThermal, of course, looking for a little bit of an advantage, since you don't typically expect to see this many Hellions early on.
Yeah.
And just trying to bully HeroMarine back here. There is opportunity, but the Cyclone should be able to push it back.
Yep. Cyclone going to be able to push this back. uThermal, of course, a player that I think has pretty damn good micro and is pretty well known for it. Looking for a bit of an opportunity there, but of course not going to find it. The usual pokes forward and backwards in TvT, but more interesting, I would say, is the fact that we do have Banshee follow-up with Cloak over here for HeroMarine, and just a Raven for uThermal.
You don't see it, really. Banshee with Cloak is like it's an anti-meta play, because what people do normally these days is what HeroMarine is doing. HeroMarine this game has done like possibly the most vanilla standard build outside of going for the Banshee. You see going with the double Cyclone into the tanks. He's got the Reactor Marines off of gas first. He wants to put pressure on the front here, but because people do this so typically, those Hellions, not contesting the tanks, because this is so normal that you see the Cyclone, that HeroMarine actually can kind of get a bit of an edge. Sometimes you skip the Cyclone because you're like, well, no one builds Banshees anymore because of Ravens. And the Raven auto turret, it's going to cost 2 turrets. That's actually really big. That's 2 interference matrices that he could have used to attack on the other side of the map later. So what he's done at the very minimum is delayed a push. If uThermal was going to go for one, it doesn't look like he was, but if he was going to, then he wouldn't be able to anywhere near as effectively. And now HeroMarine's going to get his own Ravens, and this is going to turn into a relatively standard TvT. Neither player's made a huge commitment to a tech choice. Because all 4 refineries are being mined, I would wager a guess that uThermal is considering a more mechanical strategy.
Ooh, getting the snipe off another Banshee.
Okay, I say that and he starts Stim, so.
Yeah. Okay, and with Stim going up, of course, we do know that
HeroMarine's going to play bio.
Yeah.
There's the eBays.
Yep, eBay is going down behind the natural expansion mineral line. Now, like you were saying, a lot of Terran players really do like getting up those 2 fast Ravens so that you can go for the push, but even losing a few of the Marines, losing the energy on those Ravens does kind of disincentivize uThermal.
That's huge. That's a huge loss, because if he had done what HeroMarine did and went for 2 Cyclones instead of getting his tanks earlier, he smites that Banshee. Just like, boom.
Hellion getting a nice run by into the main base. Seeing a couple of the barracks also being plopped down, so has a pretty good idea of what's going on.
Yep. And he doesn't really see anything that's like crazy or unusual.
Yeah.
If they don't get a 3rd command center, they can usually have a couple of the extra barracks a little bit earlier, but it's not like by any crazy margin. HeroMarine still wants to get some map presence though, and uThermal is also moving out onto the map because this is TvT.
Yeah, it takes a couple of shots on those Marines. Remember, there's no medevacs out, so that is going to mean these Marines die a lot faster than any of the siege tank fire or heck, and any of the Marine fire itself. But uThermal siege up in the middle of the map, and this is going to allow HeroMarine to kind of circumvent his army for a bit.
Yep, he's going for the wraparound on this map. There's a lot of potential here. Okay, he's going to siege up the tanks. He's got enforcement in the software defensive position. uThermal's going to drop a missile turret on top of the army. Then the Ravens are going to come in from HeroMarine and drop them on the left side. The 2 siege tanks on the top are still there, but all the other units on the ground have been completely mopped up, and HeroMarine is going to be able to kill this siege tank with the majority of his forces left over. Still has 3 tanks of his own and the Cyclone.
Oh man,
a lot of SCVs were moved down. There was definitely opportunity for him to push further here.
He also just got all of the Vikings, all 5 of the Vikings. Sure, they managed to win out in the air war, like you were saying, and if he had been able to keep them alive, maybe there's some other advantages that he can garner there, but he loses all of them.
Oh my God.
Now he's going to lose another one of the Ravens.
Matrix, but yeah, he still loses the siege tank. The Cyclones and the Marines are going to clean up these Vikings. Tanks about to come off of interference matrix, helps to finish off that Viking, and HeroMarine putting a ton of pressure on uThermal's 3rd base. This is kind of what I was talking about Fear Dragon. Even if you go for that fast 3rd base, you still see a lot of these tank pushes early on with the support of the Ravens, because that their energy abilities are so decisive and powerful in these early skirmishes. Viking's going to try to get some high ground to pick off the tank from below, but HeroMarine, of course he has a scan.
Oh boy. And going to lose a little bit more of that air superiority he was trying to go for as he tries to follow this up with Liberators. There are just medevacs out for HeroMarine behind this, so he's going to rely on the Marines to try and take care of the Liberators, but instead just backs up. He says, you know what, I did enough damage there. He's got 70 workers. He's been mining from his 3rd base. He's got his gas geysers and everything going up. and uThermal's just now starting his, barely starting to get that mining at the third base once again.
He got delayed a lot, Fear Dragon, and HeroMarine, he doesn't miss a beat with his production behind all of this. His 2-2 is on the way, his stim is finishing up. You pointed out the third base is already mining. He's like fully saturated. HeroMarine's chilling at 70 SCVs. It ain't nothing but a thing, baby. And that's just all off the back of HeroMarine, getting a great amount of momentum from the beginning of this game. And I really like to see it, putting on some great pressure. This Liberator, it's like, okay, yeah, I want to send Liberator harass, but the sensor tower, perfectly positioned. That German efficiency, Fear Dragon, he's going to see it immediately. HeroMarine's even building a depot at the top of the map over there because he's like, I want even more vision.
Yep, a Liberator in the natural expansion denying some mining, though. And now the one in the third base, like you said, gets spotted out very quickly, gets sniped off at the same time. He's still got to clean up that Liberator in the natural, but just a little bit of lost mine time. Not too many workers going down there.
Yeah, so this is the Liberator that's annoying.
Yeah.
As good as Marines are, even when you're playing Bio, it's like you're going to lose a few Marines pushing into this because Liberators one-tap them. But there you go, cleans that up, drops down the turret. And uThermal does have his own sensor tower set up now, but really the big thing that's giving me the sweats, Fear Dragon, is the 2-2. It's only just started now for uThermal. There will be a significant period of time where HeroMarine is going to be ahead on upgrades. For those of you wondering, Marines shoot so fast, being down that armor and attack upgrade it means the Marines will take one more hit to kill the enemies, and they'll die in one less hit. So pretty much if HeroMarine gets an even fight against uThermal with that upgrade lead, he is going to ROTF LOL with his corpse. It's going to be bad.
Well, fourth base is going to be established here for uThermal just a little bit earlier on than HeroMarines, which is still under construction. But HeroMarine is starting to push out with his siege tanks, all of those Marines with 2-2 finishing up, like you said. HeroMarine actually going to get caught over here for a moment, but uThermal probably doesn't want to commit into all those tanks and the Marines together without his own tanks.
And HeroMarine, extremely tactful. His 2-2 literally finishing as this push arrives at his opponent's front door.
Planetary Fortress will help out a little bit if he can get enough time to buy.
Still 20 seconds away. It's really about the tanks in the back. He needs to get the Marines with those.
HeroMarine is losing the Marine fight, it looks like, with the Siege Tank War definitely going his way. The Vikings in the air for both sides combating. It's actually a very close fight, and if uThermal's able to win this fight, he will be able to push back those medevacs as well, but both of the Vikings end up falling.
Trade. Yeah, the Vikings trade. So this is good for uThermal now that he's been able to finish the Planetary Fortress. It's going to be a good bulwark to fall back on for uThermal's auxiliary army. But once these tanks get in range, HeroMarine is just trying to wedge himself into a position where he can hit the Planetary and not even. Oh my God, he's just going to run the Marines.
Oh, there's no
splitting as he dives in, snatches up those tanks, and now I'm really worried. He could focus down the SCVs with the siege tanks if he wants to. He could, and honestly, when you're doing this much damage to the Planetary, it costs a lot of money to repair this like this.
Yep, costing money, costing a lot of mining time for these workers. This is going to be painful for uThermal to continue holding. Another siege tank gets in range of the mineral line.
Hop, skip, jump, and he's focusing down the SCVs with that
beautiful.
one. HeroMarine has played a brilliant TvT here in Fear Dragon.
He's doing a great job, and finally 2-2 is about to finish up here for uThermal. He's also going to be another 40 or 50 seconds behind on 3-3. Liberators get sniped off, keeping this siege tank alive, and the Planetary Fortress goes down. Now uThermal's trying to do his own damage with a drop on the other side of the map, but he doesn't get a single SCV there.
I don't like saying this about TvT, but I feel like HeroMarine's played this about as close to perfectly as he could have with the build that he went for. His Banshee did a little bit of harass, definitely got in his face. His first push with the Ravens was, you really couldn't have asked for more. Maybe you want to kill the third, but I think that's a bit greedy. But HeroMarine's macros has been insane. He's been taking bases behind this. He's got his own fourth base set up, constantly putting on pressure. And guess what? We talked about that 2-2 advantage. His 3-3 is about to finish up. uThermal hasn't even started 3-3.
Yeah, uThermal getting a lot of siege tanks here, and in a normal situation, in an evened up game, that would be a really great stack, trading out some Marines for 4 or 5 siege tanks. But in this situation, he loses so many Marines that I don't know he can actually hold on anymore.
Right click on the third base. Goodbye. GG. HeroMarine takes game number 1, looking so damn good.
TvT, not an easy matchup to be good in either. That is an incredibly difficult matchup where just a moment's notice you are out of position once, and suddenly all of those advantages you've been building up for the whole game just feel like they fall straight out of your hands. But HeroMarine doing a great job, like you said, flawless attacking and also defending against whatever uThermal threw at him.
If uThermal's tanks have been a little bit further to the left when he sieged up in the middle of the map, maybe things go a bit differently. But HeroMarine was able to force uThermal to be the attacker into the tanks, even though it was at his own base. That was just a really good start. And those interference matrix, you know, I imagine HeroMarine in a little like Robin costume, just jumping around, throwing out the interference matrix, knocking everything down, and it went extremely well. Very well played game from him. Yeah.
Yeah, really unfortunate that uThermal also in that fight, where if you win the air fight, usually you can like maybe land the Vikings or something, try and help out a little bit, but in that situation, he was already at a point where the Vikings were just getting sniped off by the Marines because the ground force won so one-sidedly there for HeroMarine, and then uThermal just walked away from that fight without winning any part of the engagement, because it doesn't matter if you win the air fight if you lose all the units in the air anyways.
Yep, it's difficult. It's a really tough situation to be in, and just TvT is an extremely punishing matchup because when you win or lose a fight, the units that you have left over are usually like very powerful units. Having even just 1 or 2 tanks means you're not planning down that third, you're not moving out units in front of your natural, you are just stuck. And that's what happens, especially because you usually lose the Ravens as well if you're the loser. If HeroMarine had kept the Ravens with that and won that fight, then things just get like disgusting tier.
Yeah. Well, we now sit in a situation where uThermal is going to be sitting down 0-1 in this second series of the day. Now, again, this is the first match that either one of these guys have played, so neither one's going to be eliminated or anything right here. But I would say a lot of people were looking at this group, and while I think a lot of respect is definitely given to HeroMarine, uThermal is the player that a lot of people had their eyes on, just based on like Team Liquid threads and all that stuff. A lot of people were expecting uThermal to be able to make it out maybe in first place, if not second. So if uThermal goes down to that lower bracket match
I think
first,
they forgot to check the Terran player's MMR, Fear Dragon.
that is a fair point. I think HeroMarine would agree with that.
HeroMarine would make like a great anime villain. I can see him with the little square glasses.
I think he's a villain.
I think his glasses, like you couldn't see the reflection in his eyes, and it's just like, my tank's already outside
He pushes the glasses up every single time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's perfect.
That's the vibe I get from him.
Well, we're going to be starting down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. Top of the red Terran player from Team Liquid. His name is uThermal.
Sitting down 0-1 in this series. Trying to bring it back now, y'all, against this man of a man in the Northeast. The blue Terran player, he is HeroMarine.
Has been on Mouse Esports for such a long time. I don't even know that there are any other StarCraft players on Mouse Esports, but HeroMarine's stuck with them.
He's been with them forever, man.
And he's only 21. It blows my mind how long HeroMarine has been with us.
He'll be very lucky to find another relationship in his life that lasts as long as the one he's had with Mouse. Most people would be, actually.
As a beautiful marriage, indeed. Okay. Taking a look at how the last game shaped up, we ended up seeing uThermal going for a slightly faster expansion, but eventually things sort of evened themselves out. uThermal tried to get a little bit aggressive and stuff. I feel like usually you see the pokes back and forward in Terran versus Terran in the early game, but it's one in maybe like 20 games that it really makes a huge impact or something, where you actually manage to just kill your opponent's Reapers or Hellions and then shut down a natural or something.
You can get early game snowballing. It doesn't happen often. There are players who, when they do this double gas first, like safe opening, they'll actually just keep building Hellions and Reapers and like go for a Liberator. Oftentimes that starport is proxied when you do those builds, but it's not crazy common, and going for like what HeroMarine did, where you kind of don't get as much, but you get the Cyclone earlier. The Cyclone stunts on a lot of these builds. So it's really hard to poke and harass. Although, on the other hand, sometimes those builds are designed to overwhelm just that Cyclone, and then things do snowball out of control.
Yeah.
But as we watch this game warm up, very similar, by the way, builds. Almost the same exact builds from the last map. Just want to say, if you guys haven't already hooked up that War Chest extension on Twitch, I know some of you have been bothered. It's on every stream, and you've already filled out your second phase a month ago. Unblock the extension. Get on here. Let's go. I filled up 2 of my War Chest phase thingies.
Have you checked what skins you unlocked?
Yes, I unlocked the Special Forces Tech Lab and the Special Forces Starport. So now my BCs are rolling out.
In style.
In style. Big pimpin' right there, Fear Dragon. So hook it up, press that claim XP button, and yeah.
I can't wait for the carve-out animations to start depicting some of those skins. That's what I'm looking for.
That's what I want. I want to see the carve-out animation video about the battle cruiser with knives on it, or the medevac with knives.
Oh,
Medevac
yes.
has no attack capabilities, but it has 2 blades on it. Why can't I imagine? I'm talking.
It has a medevac boost. It actually
that's
is
what I'm
so
saying.
prepared.
Turn on the afterburners and plow through a cloud of mutilisks with those knives. You know what I'm saying? That would
Oh
be
my God.
cinematic as heck, Fear Dragon. I'm just imagining, like, why did he build 20 medevacs? He's playing mech. Like,
I need
okay.
to formally apologize to
And
all
then
the
they all
Zerg players in the
Fly
audience.
straight through all the Broodlords. Oh my goodness.
We're
Even
depicting
the Zerg
it.
players think this would be sick. Come on.
They would, but they would think it was sick in a different regard.
You know, let's simulate
Oh.
Zerg's repair. You know, why not have repair? There's no reason not to. Those drones look like they could probably fix stuff with their.
They do have drills, right? Or no, sorry, not
Saw
the drills, the
blades.
saw blades. Can you repair anything with a saw blade?
Look, man, I don't think the SCV's fusion cutter is necessarily the most delicate tool either. Let's be honest here, and it can fix anything. Except
I like to imagine it's like screwing screws in, which is a part of fixing things.
that doesn't that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you're like retightening screws.
If I was a robot and someone shot me with like a machine gun, like a Marine,
Then I would stick a screw in where they
and then-
shot you.
Yeah, and then someone
And now it's
tightening
filled.
my screws, I don't think that fixes my damaged vanadium plating.
No, they're unscrewing the bullet from your body that was lodged in.
Don't ever talk to me ever again.
All right, we do see Ravens coming out for both these players.
This is the super standard TvT setup.
Ooh, gonna be able to snag a free Hellion over here. Takes some splash damage on his own Hellions, but has to back up because once again the Cyclones are here. We do have 2 Cyclones this time.
Remember he went for 2 Cyclones last game. These builds are almost the exact same minus the Banshee. HeroMarine just went for the faster Ravens, and his setup borderline identical to uThermal's. uThermal's gonna start his Viking production just a smidge later. Not that it really matters with Defender's advantage, since I do expect HeroMarine to try and push out.
Oop, that's a
This
kill.
Reaper doing a good job being annoying. These tiny little details in TvT I always find fascinating because in other matchups it's pretty pointless, right? You're like, oh, you did some shield damage, some probes, whatever, they're all gonna regen, or same thing to drones. But in TvT, that like maybe 30 hit points missing across all the SCVs in the main ends up mattering in a really big way when you have to pull them to defend or repair. When like, a big tank push comes and you're like, wow, all my SCVs are actually already like half dead. I'm trying to use a meat shield with 30 hit point workers. Well, you know how big a proponent I am of repair after a Specials Viking fiasco yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Watching all of those units just sit in the yellow health for 10 minutes was a little bit painful.
Repair your stuff. It costs a 25% of the original build cost to repair a unit. It is never a bad deal, unless you are repairing a unit that you intentionally don't kill anything with. In which case, why are you playing the game?
Wow, that escalated quickly.
I play StarCraft to build units that I don't fight with, but I let them get hurt. I manually make my tanks attack each other.
Isn't that the idea for the Swarm, though? Is that I don't care if these units die because I'll have more.
Well, that's different.
Hellions taking some damage
This
there
is the
from
big
Cyclones.
push, by the way.
Yep.
The Cyclones want to try and bully him and like pick off a few units from here.
I think he saw the push also with the Cyclones, right? So he knows the angle it's coming in from.
Yeah, need to be very careful though, because everything's situated towards the front door, but the siege up from the south side is really hard to break on this map. You can block off the minerals, the refinery, and because it's a cliff, obviously the SCVs have to go a very long way around to get in your face. There's the scan, HeroMarine. I don't think he realizes what's happening. Oh, now he sees it.
Yep. And we end up seeing all the siege tanks get exactly in that position you were talking about, that low ground natural getting sniped off, the refinery getting sniped off. We end up seeing HeroMarine trying to figure out what to do with these siege tanks. He's going to leave them on siege for now because, of course, he's trying to reposition them. But there's not an easy way to get them in a good defensive position to put this army back.
He has the defender's advantage for the 5th and 6th Viking. So those guys are going to show up just in time. There's the interference matrix on those tanks to hold him back. The counter interference matrix, but now HeroMarine has the air lead, right? So without scans, uThermal can't do too much else. And he's going to drop these auto turrets to soak up the tank shots while he repositions his tanks once again. Still really good attack from uThermal. Puts himself ahead 10 workers. He is going to be, I think, very concerned about the counterattack, so he's going to unsiege and leave. He realizes now that if he gets overwhelmed, he very well might just die.
Yeah, it's already a little bit dangerous, and of course he lost a lot of that air army, or has no real way of getting high ground vision, so as he tries to retreat back, he knows that his own Vikings are quite important in this next fight. He's sitting down a few of those, and that Raven, there's 2 hit points left over, and it is going to go down to the... No.
Repair that.
Oh my god.
Repair that Raven, uThermal.
The SCVs are right there.
Okay, he's getting the Viking. He's repairing the Viking first. If he repairs the Raven as well, then I'm happy. But the Raven is also, it's like such an obvious target. Okay, at least he uses the energy on it.
Yeah, gets an auto down, softens up one of those Vikings a little bit. But these siege tanks, they're kind of trapped. This is going to be more of a big deal if there are more Marines that get over here, but for now they can maybe get something done.
This is such an awkward spot because so many of uThermal's tanks, I guess, could end up working in his advantage that he has the ability to sandwich. But this lack of air control is always going to be a problem. Liberator's going to siege up on the tank. The Vikings, you kind of want to focus fire down the Liberator because you're not as worried about the Vikings as you are the Lib. But now, I mean, this is one of the other things that just happens in TvT. Even though uThermal got so much damage done, when you give up the air control, if you're ahead in TvT and you have air control, build Liberators in the game. You just end the game. You just kill people.
SCVs going in on top of these siege tanks. The splash damage from the siege tanks actually doing some friendly fire, taking out some of HeroMarine's tanks. But HeroMarine has already killed off a lot of workers. 13 go down. He has a solid 10 or so worker advantage. uThermal is able to push this back, though, and keeps his dreams alive a little bit longer.
Yeah. Best thing about that, and I was kind of like alluding that this could happen, was being able, actually having his tanks caught outside of his base, ended up working in favor of him because he was able to get such a wide surround that those tanks weren't all just blasting away on a small contingent. I still think the air advantage is important here, though. But having lost his siege tanks, he needs something to keep uThermal from pushing forward, and it looks like there's nothing. He doesn't even have combat shields. He can't even take a head-to-head fight.
Yeah, it turns out 7 tanks is better than 1 tank, as uThermal gets directly in range of that third base. Anti-armor missile SCVs being pulled off the line.
That will help a lot with killing these Marines, as HeroMarine pulls absolutely everything over towards the top of this ramp. The Marine's taking a big beating over here, but as long as he provides vision for the siege tanks, they're going to be able to clean up, and uThermal might be able to close this one out. GG, we're going to game 3.
Well played by uThermal. A solid defense. They got a little bit scary there for a bit, as of course that third base was under some serious fire, but pulling the SCVs, he got the exact right amount of damage done to the army of HeroMarine. Was able to counterattack really effectively.
Yeah, something definitely went wrong there with the counterattack from HeroMarine production-wise. The way that he just kind of marched back across the map, I don't know if there was another tank that was being rallied or something, but he had no tanks at home to like just put at the top of that ramp with his Marines and say, okay, you're going to have to use scans, you need air control. When your opponent's able to get on even footing with you like that, like that's so rough. I love the anti-armor missile as kind of like the Hail Mary play where his Marines could win even though they were behind on the upgrades. But if you can't deal with the tanks, you're going to have a bad time.
Absolutely.
I guess he just overextended counterattacking towards that third.
Yeah, I guess it was a bit of an overextension, but I'm with you because I was expecting there to be at least 2, maybe 3 tanks or something back at home that maybe they wouldn't be in position, but he only had 1 tank when that push came in. I think it just popped off, so it wasn't in position to actually siege up there. But of course, guys, if you are looking for more tanks to be produced, there's exactly 1 building that makes them. There's only 1 building that makes them. And of course, it is that factory. If you want to have a cool factory that will help give you the confidence boost you need to make those tanks on time for your defenses and pick up that war chest. 25% of the proceeds will go toward esports initiatives in 2019. And
we got some cool StarCraft esports stuff, by the way, happening this year.
Yeah.
Lots of GSL this year, actually. I'm really happy about that. We got tons of WCS. We just announced the schedule for 2019. Plenty of events coming, and it's nice.
Yeah.
You know?
It's going to be a fun year with a lot of StarCraft still happening, so it's going to be...
It's only going to get better, by the way.
And this is all just like, this is all just a good way to kind of anticipate who's looking good, who's maybe on the up and up for StarCraft as well. WCS Winter is really cool for that. The format
I love the preseason format of this event, just because it's like, yeah, we're warming everybody up for the year. There's plenty more to come. But just in case you're wondering where everybody stands after the long winter break, as we usually call it, the off season. of
The
StarCraft
off-season that
esports.
lasts for like a week and a half.
I guess it depends. It's like, well, which events do you count as primary season? I don't know.
Yeah.
The WCS off season.
As someone who organizes tournaments and everything, the off season is just where all the online tournament organizers just say, okay, put as much stuff in here as we can, because this is when all of the other big events are not happening. This is the time where the most players are available right now. So the off season doesn't really exist for me.
Yeah, it's nice to get everybody back as we warm up the WCS circuit.
Indeed. Well, we're moving into game number 3. The map, interestingly enough, is going to be Year Zero, one of the maps we haven't seen as much of to this entire season, I would say, for WCS Winter.
I mean, we've
we've seen WCS. We've seen Year Zero a bit.
It's been a few PVZs, I'd say. We had it once or twice yesterday, right? In the PVZs in Year.
Yeah. Of course, this is the map with Amon for those who forget.
We had the Golden Armada on this map.
Ah, yes, the mothership and all that good stuff.
Because building a mothership basically qualifies you to say that. So
it is golden. But here we are, guys, in the top right-hand corner of the map, top of the blue Terran player from Team Liquid. He is uThermal, giving us that color switcheroo. But I like this color on him better, because Team Liquid is blue.
Yep. And his opponent in the red trunks to the northwest, he is HeroMarine, a.k.a. Big Gabe.
Is there a little Gabe? Is there a different size Gabe?
I think that there is a voodoo doll of him out there somewhere, probably, yeah.
You think uThermal's made a voodoo doll?
No.
Or
No. uThermal's not artistic enough to do something. uThermal might have like a voodoo stick figure.
You don't think he's artistic?
I feel like if you don't have enough detail on your voodoo doll, it just doesn't work. That's what someone told me, at least.
I could see that. You know, television and all that stuff has told me the opposite, though. Because all of those voodoo dolls on television that you see, they're all really bad voodoo dolls. I'm not saying, but this is where I'm going Twitch chat. I'm going Twitch chat GM.
An expert on voodoo dolls for your dragon?
This is where I'm going Twitch chat GM, where I'm like, look, I think I could criticize the voodoo dolls for these, but I myself am not great at making voodoo dolls.
I don't think your voodoo MMA is enough to have this conversation with me.
Both these players are going to be going for the same builds, though. Both of these players going for the faster command center. Is this like a map thing, or? Yes,
this map's garbage for Proxy Reaper. You're not going to see it. It takes too long. Actually, the rush distance takes so long that to get into a good proxy spot, you have to send your SCVs out even a little bit earlier, and it's just, it's not fun. It's bad times all around. You have a ramp into your natural, which is great, and you have a big map and direct air path, so playing normal, playing standard schmandard is a little bit less risky here, as evidenced by Reaper straight into factory reactor.
Yep. You can just pop that onto the factory, get up some Hellions, poke forward.
For the record, on any other map, like if you had just been like blindsided by a Proxy Reaper doing this build, you die instantly. Like you just die instantly. It's one Reaper versus 2. You pull all your SCVs, but by the time they even get halfway there, your Reaper's dead, and then there's 3 Reapers, and you're like, oh no, let me lift my factory.
Reapers do damage fast, man.
Yep. TvT's in a weird spot because of that. Because there's still a good amount of people that do the proxy stuff since the dumb Cyclone got removed. The Cyclone that just kind of like throws stuff at you and doesn't really do anything interesting. Since that one got removed, like, well, now the Reaper's a little bit stronger. But then the whole game just becomes about the Raven push. The tank Raven push is so big. And that air superiority factor afterwards usually has a really big impact on whoever wins the game.
Raven starting up for both sides at about the same time. We do have a tech lab starting up on that factory just a little bit faster for HeroMarine, whereas I think, okay, there's a tech lab for uThermal. All just mirrored builds, totally mirrored as these productions.
One gas on the natural. This build is too good, actually. This build is overpowered in TvT for your dragon. It has cannibalized and eaten up all of the other builds in TvT. Because if you don't if you don't do this build, you usually die to it.
Oh, HeroMarine very ready for any kind of Hellion pokes forward, as he does have his Marines, or at least starts off with his Marines very well split up. But toward the end of this fight, it looks like uThermal still finds bits and pieces of damage. The Marines start to clump up a bit more. Going for a mule.
And if uThermal gets an auto turret out of that Raven, it's gonna be a little fist pump in Netherlands.
Cyclone pops out. That should end it.
Drop the turret. Use that Raven energy. Remember when you used 2 Raven missile turrets to deal with the Banshee? Do it again.
Yeah.
Although that was
the opposite end of it.
Yeah. The Raven energy is like, it's kind of become like Larva. If I was gonna make a comparison to like ZVZ, where the Raven energy is like a 3rd resource.
It's like anti-larva. It prevents the unit from being there.
It's a 3rd resource that if you
Yeah.
waste, you're like, ugh. And once upon a time, I think like the meme was that like some people used to do auto turret harass in TvT, and it's like as soon as your opponent dropped an auto turret in your mineral line, and actually I still do this on ladder, you just pull everything and attack, because then if you have your Raven, if your Ravens have energy, you're like, oh, I lost 3 SCVs, but now you only have like 1 or 2 interference matrix, and I have 4 or 5. Game's just over.
Yeah, that can definitely be a pretty scary spot to be in if you are down a little bit too much in that Raven energy.
My favorite piece of advice for TvT, people who do these builds.
It's just,
if someone drops an auto turret in your base to harass you, they just go kill them. They won't have anything. Because the Raven is such a huge part of that. But both players aren't going to be killing each other just yet here. Stim is on the way, double engineering base, 3rd command centers. It is about as mirrored as could be. We will just find out from this game, game 3, who can do the tango better than the other.
what's the logic on when you make a Cyclone or when you don't in the early game? Because we see that HeroMarine really likes to go for it.
It's pure preference. The Cyclone is the safe pick. Cyclones dunk on everything. If you build a Cyclone at the start of a TvT, you do not have to worry about Banshee because you're going to build a Raven. Anyway, you do not have to worry about the Liberator because it can kill it very easily and kite around it and actually kills it, unlike the old Cyclone. And it just generally pushes away any of those overly aggressive like Hellion Reaper pushes at the start. The Cyclone does not really have late game utility, like the first one you build. It'll probably die in the first real fight you get into.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, it's the mental advantage of being able to check off a ton of boxes, you know? It's like, well, the Cyclone's not going to really do anything in a big push, but at least I know that I'm not going to worry about X, Y, Z, and that allows me to focus and tailor the rest of my strategy towards A, B, C.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And of course, in that early game stage, being able to pick off even a small number of the units that make their way around the map, as we end up just seeing a Cyclone picking off some of the Marines, poking around, seeing the army push forward. There it does go down. But HeroMarine has a perfect idea where the army is. Oh, he's going to use the rocks.
Is this the greatest debate? Oh, goodness. Goodbye, Marines. And you know what? Oh, now I'm imagining a world where he just tries to take the air battle here, and he like, somehow wins it. But there's a lot of Vikings for uThermal.
Yeah, this is a huge. This is almost double the number of Vikings here for uThermal. Of course, 2 more rallying in from around the map here.
Oh, the auto turret stopping tanks. He's like, don't run from me. Let's play.
Okay, but is that going to cost him? He does want some of the interference matrices.
Don't fight the Vikings. Vikings on the
ground. Ooh, loses 1 Raven. Loses a 2nd Raven, maybe?
Yeah, focus the Raven. Pull back. Pull back. This is really intense. But since the Ravens are gone, he has interference matrix if he needs it defensively.
Okay, and
but
now
his 3rd base is in jeopardy. That's okay. That's a big problem.
3rd base is in jeopardy, and uThermal has landed his Vikings because he has the inferior number. But here we go.
Interference matrix on all 3 tanks. Vikings do insane damage to mechanical units on the ground, so wipes out all of those tanks. Just gonna spread them out, step forward, get real nice and close.
Oh, this is hard to recover from when you lose that many tanks and that many Marines, and he doesn't get that much damage on 7 workers killed.
That's how HeroMarine lost game 2, right? He immediately counterattacked, lost all of his tanks, and then. Like the tides of war, TvT ebbs and flows. Like
I mean, this is almost the entire army.
Unusually high tide, Fear Dragon.
And the tide is a-coming.
Yep.
HeroMarine moves across the map.
As it pulls back, it pushes the other way, and HeroMarine is gearing up for a big push. uThermal building his 4th base on location. He is entering the turtle shell, but will it be strong enough to protect him from this onslaught coming in from HeroMarine, who still has 2 Ravens, and I believe there's 2 interference matrices at the moment.
He also has combat shields, something that uThermal is only now starting up, and that's going to be a big problem as well, with Siege Tank Fire really devastating a lot of these Marines.
That's the power of interference matrix. It's just like, okay, then I kill your tank, bada bing, bada boom. Oh, you got another tank? That's fine. Let me just inch my way up towards that 3rd, and then I can just use interference matrix on that tank.
Yep, 3rd base totally barren right now, and uThermal gonna have a hard time defending. He tries to load up some Marines, but doesn't actually have enough Marines to take on the run by force over here of HeroMarine, and I think that uThermal is starting to see glimpses of his death and destruction here in game number 3.
Well, and this is weird because the 4th base for him is up and running. So he's like, I can kind of bleed out some of this 3rd. There's like a weird world where he manages to like kind of escape his cage. But as the tanks get closer to natural, that just kind of like falls off. He's hitting it from the north and the east at the same time, but not enough. HeroMarine closes the series out 2-1. And it's that ebb and flow. It goes from the air control to the tanks, back to the air control. And in a world where he killed the 2 Ravens and they traded out, like in the previous game, he makes that attack, and it's like, okay, we gotta do the awkward thing where you step forward, you wanna be in range of the other tank, but not in vision of the other tank so that you can like slowly chip away at it. You gotta be careful that your opponent's scanning you. And this game, he's like, interference matrix, you're dead. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of that also came down the disorganization there of how uThermal even lost air control. Because remember, there was that moment where uThermal had 8 Vikings, and HeroMarine only had 4 Vikings.
He got super aggressive.
He got caught by the sight blockers and the rocks for a moment, loses a bunch of his Marines, and then uThermal's trying to push across the map, but then suddenly he ends up losing his Ravens, like you said. He loses some of his Vikings. He ends up having to land his Vikings, and that's how everything just started snowballing there in that engagement.
Yep.
So really good move.
It's really tough. You know, the way you use the Raven energy is also really important. He drops auto turrets trying to kill the tanks on the way home. Doesn't kill any with 2 turrets.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, you got some damage done, but those tanks are, in an ideal world, they're never going to be in range of any of your ground units again. They're just going to keep running home unless you kill him. So, really well played. I love the game management by HeroMarine. Felt like he overextended in game 2, but I feel like there was something else maybe that we missed in terms of his macro, because I felt like he should have had more units and been able to defend the counterattack. Anyway, he's going to move on to the winner's match to play against Lambo.
Indeed, and that is going to be in the second to next match. But the next match is going to be a different Terran versus Zerg. Haytney facing off versus uThermal. Loser gets knocked out of WCS Winter. We'll see you there.